In the illustrious annals of the world's navies, there exist vessels forged not merely from steel, but elevated into enduring symbols of entire nations. Their voyages mirror the indomitable will, profound tragedies, and resilient resurgence of their people. The saga of the USS West Virginia stands as such an epic anthem. From a technological marvel that ruled the vast oceans to a victim of one of the most harrowing dawns in history, and then reborn from the ashes to become a ruthless weapon of vengeance. This is the story of the ship that refused to be forgotten. The USS West Virginia stood as the crowning achievement of the Colorado-class battleships, a lineage forged to assert the United States' dominion over the seas in the early decades of the 20th century. This vessel was not merely an evolution. It embodied a revolutionary leap in American naval design philosophy of its era. Building upon the legacy of the preceding Tennessee class, the Colorado class forged a decisive leap forward. Unparalleled firepower. They were armed with 8 formidable 16-inch naval guns, a commanding superiority over the 14-inch calibers that defined their predecessors. This formidable power elevated West Virginia and her sister ships to a class all their own. Across the globe at that time, only a handful of rare adversaries, such as the Royal Navy's Nelson-class battleships, could rival their naval artillery might. The engineers concentrated not solely on offensive might, but placed equal emphasis on survivability. The armor plating was reinforced to greater thickness, especially around critical zones, such as the ammunition magazines and engine compartments. The strategic objective was unmistakable: to ensure these floating fortresses could withstand the devastating blows delivered by their equally formidable adversaries. Yet dissenting voices persisted. A faction within the Naval Command contended that retaining too many design elements from the Tennessee class was a cautious move, and that a more radical overhaul might have forged a truly groundbreaking class of battleships. However, the vision of the United States Navy was one of long-term strategic foresight. They pursued a doctrine centered on the synchronization of battleships. By maintaining uniformity in speed, armament, and armor protection, they optimized the entire logistical chain, training regimens, and fleet tactics, an indispensable factor for large-scale confrontations across the vast oceans. With a formidable frame akin to a fortress and devastating firepower, the USS West Virginia was launched on November 19, 1921, and officially commissioned into the fleet on December 1, 1923. She was a supreme, predatory beast, embodying the naval supremacy of her era. In the fragile years of peace that bridged 2 world wars, the West Virginia, affectionately dubbed Wee V by her crew, embarked upon a career marked by relentless vigor. Immediately following her maiden voyage under the command of Captain Thomas J. Senn, the vessel encountered an unfortunate mishap. While navigating the Lynnhaven Channel, a mechanical failure caused her to run aground, a decidedly embarrassing predicament for both the captain and his crew. Fortune smiled upon them, however, as a subsequent investigation revealed the root cause to be erroneous chart data, thereby exonerating Captain Senn and his navigating officer. Throughout the 1920s and 1930s, the Wee V emerged as a shining star in the grand-scale war games of the United States Navy, known officially as the fleet problems. These rigorous maneuvers spanned vast maritime theaters, from the icy waters off Alaska to the tropical seas of Panama, designed to test and refine emerging naval warfare doctrines. In 1925, under the masterful command of Captain Arthur Jappy Hepburn, the USS West Virginia triumphed over its rivals in a fierce gunnery competition, securing the coveted Battle Efficiency pennant. As the political atmosphere across Europe grew increasingly suffocating in the 1930s, the USS West Virginia began to receive a series of incremental upgrades. Its anti-aircraft defenses were enhanced, and catapults for seaplanes were installed. Yet a harsh reality loomed large. Comprehensive modernization plans for the ship had been drawn up, but the crushing financial burden, coupled with the emergence of a new generation of battleships, swifter and more formidable, forced these ambitions to be shelved. In the relentless race of naval technology, West Virginia and her sister ships of the same era began to confront the harsh reality of obsolescence. As newer warships were prioritized with cutting-edge advancements, the WV received only patchwork upgrades, gradually relegated to the rear lines. As the specter of a new world war loomed ever larger, the focus swiftly shifted toward urgently bolstering air defense capabilities. Yet fate had decreed that all these efforts would ultimately prove too little, too late. In the pre-dawn hours of December 7, 1941, the USS West Virginia lay anchored solemnly at Battleship Row in Pearl Harbor, positioned steadfastly beside her sister ship, the USS Tennessee. Suddenly the serene blue sky was rent asunder by the thunderous roar of a Japanese air squadron. A symphony of devastation had commenced. For Japanese strategists, battleships like the West Virginia represented the ultimate prize, second only to the elusive aircraft carriers. On that fateful day, with American carriers conspicuously absent, the full fury of the assault was unleashed upon the steel giants lying dormant in the harbor. West Virginia instantly became the epicenter of a furious onslaught. 7 torpedoes tore through her port side in rapid succession, while 2 heavy bombs rained down relentlessly upon her deck from the skies above. A bomb tore through the port side, igniting fierce infernos deep below decks. The second struck the aft turret. Though it failed to detonate, its sheer impact shattered one gun and destroyed 2 seaplanes perched on the deck. Fuel from these aircraft spilled forth, engulfing the vessel in a towering blaze, transforming it into a colossal torch of fire. Amidst the chaos, the steadfast courage of the naval servicemen shone brilliantly. Observing the ship dangerously listing, Lieutenant Claude V. Ricketts and his crew took decisive action. They deliberately flooded compartments on the starboard side to restore balance, a masterstroke that prevented the West Virginia from capsizing like the nearby USS Oklahoma. Even as the inferno raging from the USS Arizona spread, threatening to engulf everything in its path and forcing a desperate evacuation, Ricketts and his team stood resolute, steadfastly battling the relentless blaze. On the command deck, Captain Mervyn S. Bennion sustained grievous wounds from a bomb fragment. Despite his mortal injury, he steadfastly continued to lead and inspire his crew until his final breath. For this extraordinary valor, he was posthumously awarded the Medal of Honor, the United States' most prestigious decoration. At that very moment, Doris Miller, an African-American sailor trained solely as a mess attendant, fearlessly rushed to an anti-aircraft gun and unleashed a furious barrage against the diving Japanese planes. His heroic deed would later be honored with the Navy Cross. But all valiant efforts proved insufficient. Wounded and engulfed in a sea of flames, the West Virginia slowly sank into the shallow harbor waters. In total, 106 sailors were lost forever with the ship. In the days following the catastrophe, as chaos momentarily subsided, an even more harrowing truth was uncovered. Rescue teams began to hear it. Faint, desperate tapping echoing from within the submerged hull of the West Virginia and the other stricken vessels. A faint, solitary metallic tapping echoed through the silence. It paused. Then it resumed, beating out a rhythm steeped in despair. It was a signal from survivors trapped within air pockets deep beneath the water's surface. For the rescuers, it was a harrowing psychological torment. They knew their comrades were right there, shrouded in cold darkness, yet breaching the hull risked catastrophic explosions or sinking the vessel entirely, dooming the very souls they sought to save. The watch near the USS West Virginia became one of the most harrowing duties imaginable. In the stillness of the night, faint cries for help echoed from deep within the ship's hull, haunting the minds of all who heard them. A storm of fury and helplessness engulfed the entire naval base, igniting within the heart of America an unshakable resolve for vengeance. The tragedy of Pearl Harbor, which claimed 2,335 lives and echoed with the anguished cries from within the USS West Virginia, ignited an unquenchable thirst for vengeance across the United States. The Navy had been dealt a devastating blow, and the prospect of an immediate counterstrike seemed utterly unattainable. But America refused to surrender. From the ashes arose one of the greatest feats of engineering in World War II. This was not merely the repair of a ship. It was the salvage of an entire fleet's honor. For the salvage crews, it was a hellish ordeal. They toiled within a fetid stew of oil, water, and the remnants of fallen sailors. As a first-hand witness recounted, the acrid scent of burning fuel and the harrowing scenes rendered one nearly incapable of eating or drinking. Yet amidst that brutal crucible, the unyielding will of those nameless craftsmen triumphed. They forged the impossible, and on May 17, 1942, the Watery rose again, reborn and ready to sail once more. During this harrowing ordeal, the bodies of approximately 70 sailors trapped within were discovered. Among the wreckage, a calendar was found. On it, red pencil marks crossed off the days until December 23rd. They had survived for 16 days in the cold darkness, sustaining themselves on emergency rations before finally succumbing to the cruel deprivation of air. West Virginia and California, the two battleships that bore the heaviest scars, were chosen to undergo a comprehensive modernization, a complete transformation. Watery would finally receive the upgrades it had long been denied. The hull was reinforced with additional torpedo belts, while the superstructure underwent a complete redesign. Most crucially, the vessel was outfitted with advanced airborne search radar and cutting-edge fire control systems, fully supplanting the outdated optical equipment. Its anti-aircraft arsenal was significantly bolstered with an array of new weaponry, decisively addressing the fatal vulnerability that had doomed it at Pearl Harbor. By early July 1944, the USS West Virginia stood poised for sea trials. Nearly 3 years had passed since she was sunk, yet Watery had been reborn, stronger, more resilient, and primed for vengeance. Deployed to the Pacific Theater at its most brutal juncture, the West Virginia had now become a formidable force to be reckoned with. If other warships fought for their homeland, their king, or their emperor, the West Virginia fought for a more primal cause: vengeance. Its fateful hour arrived during the Battle of Leyte Gulf in October 1944, the largest naval engagement in the annals of human history. As a proud element of the 7th Fleet, West Virginia stood resolute, confronting the Japanese Central Force head-on within the treacherous Surigao Strait. Beneath the cloak of a dense, impenetrable night, guided by an advanced radar system, the Watery emerged as the first battleship to unleash its devastating salvo. The relentless barrages of 16-inch shells, delivered with unerring precision, combined with the devastating torpedo strikes from American destroyers, forged an inferno upon the Japanese fleet. This battle bore a profound symbolic weight. The victims of Pearl Harbor, including the USS West Virginia, had now risen as avengers. In this very battle, confronting the navy that had left it for dead, the WV exacted its long-awaited reckoning, landing a direct hit on the Japanese battleship Yamashiro and sealing its doom in the Surigao Strait. Following the Battle of Leyte Gulf, the USS West Virginia remained a pivotal force at Iwo Jima and Okinawa, unleashing its devastating naval artillery to clear the path for advancing ground troops. It also demonstrated its superior anti-aircraft prowess, successfully repelling numerous relentless assaults by the kamikaze Divine Wind squadrons. And then, in the final act of the war, USS West Virginia found its fullest redemption. On September 2, 1945, she lay anchored solemnly in Tokyo Bay, bearing witness to the moment the Empire of Japan formally signed the surrender documents aboard USS Missouri. Though the ceremony unfolded on Missouri's deck, for many, the presence of the WV there stood as the ultimate emblem of justice, a resolute affirmation that from the depths of betrayal's mire, America had risen to reclaim its due. In the aftermath of the war, in a decision many would later lament, the USS West Virginia was dismantled. It did not find eternal rest within the halls of a museum, yet its legacy never truly vanished. It endures still, alive in memory and spirit. It endures within the memories of families whose forebears once served aboard those ships. It lives on in humble yet sacred relics, a small notebook meticulously recording every shell fired in the Battle of Surigao Strait, a wartime diary guarded in secrecy for decades, or a worn military kit bag cherished by descendants. It lives on in the pride of an entire state, where the ship's components are enshrined as sacred relics. And it continues to patrol the vast oceans, as a fragment of its soul is passed on to the ballistic missile submarine USS West Virginia, SSBN 736. Though the ship was melted down, the spirit of WV remains immortal.